dare I say, based dark Brandon.
Little bit.
Dare I say it?
Little bit.
Dare I say that? Did I just say that? I think I may have said that. All right, so look, here's my nuclear, incredibly spicy hot take for you.
Okay.
That I want your opinion on. Now, I'm not saying I even fully believe this, but I'm toying with the idea now. Okay. Biden may have surpassed Obama as the best president of my lifetime.
Which is admittedly a low bar.
Yeah, so, So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to establish first why they both suck.
You're not going George H.W. Bush?
I'm going to establish first why they both are not good, and we're arguing over who's the tallest kid in kindergarten, right? Okay. But then I will proceed to make the case that perhaps Biden has surpassed Obama. Honestly, worst case scenario, I'd give it a tie. Worst case scenario, I'd give it a tie.
Now, what about, have you seen George W. Bush's paintings? Just something to add into the equation.
Just out of curiosity, does he paint with the blood of dead Iraqi babies? Is that what he paints with? Because that's what he can paint with.
He could. Right. Not sure. Undetermined.
So, yes. Anyway, all right. So
you can take his master class and find out.
Don't give me an aneurysm before we even begin the specifics.
Go ahead.
All right. So first, let's talk about Obama. The bad stuff under Obama. I'm just going to breeze through the bad stuff just to establish that we're not talking about good guys here. Okay. Flint water crisis. They drank the water pretending it was already fixed and it wasn't fixed.
Awful.
Under his administration, the infrastructure was graded a D, and he didn't do Dickie McGee's acts about that.
Okay.
He broke the deportation record. He was called the deporter-in-chief in many communities in this country as a result of that. He pushed for TPP, which is, of course, we all know, a terrible trade deal that would have outsourced.
Written by corporate America.
Corporate America. It was like under lock and key. He also did a number of other free trade deals that actually got through. There was a South Korea one, a Colombia one, a Panama one. He expanded NSA spying. Guantanamo Bay, he tried to close it, but it was left open, and he gave up on that after a while. Wall Street bailout, didn't prosecute Wall Street criminals, didn't prosecute any tortures or war criminals. He had a supermajority, didn't get single payer, didn't even get public option, no free college, no minimum wage increase, didn't legalize weed or improve the schedule of weed, gave Israel $38 billion, gave Saudi Arabia billions, illegal drone strikes, made most of the Bush tax cuts permanent. Although what I'd say about that one is they were on the lower end, so I'm not as necessarily against that because it was more tax cuts for like middle-class people. So he made those permanent, so I'm not as offended by that as some are, you know what I'm saying? It wasn't the top level that he made permanent.
Levels were.
Anyway, and then, of course, we were still in Iraq. We were still in Afghanistan. And he bombed Pakistan, Yemen, Somalia, Syria, Libya, didn't roll back the U.S. empire, didn't even try to get money out of politics. And he didn't get gun reform through despite polls that were freakishly high and a bunch of mass shootings, and he wasn't able to get anything through on that front. Okay? So that's the bad under Obama. Now,
abandoned Employee Free Choice Act too. I have to put that one in there.
Right, and that would have been phenomenal legislation for unions, right?
Yes,
Employee Free Choice Act.
That's what commonly known as card check. But that was a big campaign promise to the unions, and then immediately when they get in, they're like, "Yeah, this is too hard. Sorry, we can't do it."
Okay, so now let me tell you some good things that he did. Okay. So he did an immigration executive order on DACA, which helped out the Dreamers. He rejected the Keystone XL pipeline, rejected the Dakota Access pipeline, banned offshore oil drilling in the Arctic. That was on his way out, to be fair. When he was in office, he allowed it. And then when he was leaving office, he banned it. Killed bin Laden. You could argue about the legality of that and whatnot. People on the left might have something to say about how good that was because it was an illegal action, right? But killed bin Laden, I think a normie would give him credit for that. Cut the deficit in half. Doubled, and that, again, that's MMT people would say that's not a good thing, but just a normie would look at that and say, okay, good. Doubled the stock market, Dodd-Frank Wall Street reform, which was, I would argue, mixed at best. Cut small business taxes. He did that a number of times. Raised taxes on people making $400,000 a year or more. Ended Don't Ask, Don't Tell. Brought back stem cell research. Gay marriage happened, but that was more because of the Supreme Court. He got Obamacare, which again, I'd say is mixed. It was like the least of the reforms you could possibly do with a supermajority, right? Freed nonviolent drug offenders on his way out, a bunch of them. Probably the best thing, Iran deal. Cuba
put
deal.
That up there.
Changed the overtime rules to be more pro-worker.
Paris climate, you got that in there?
That's in here. So saved General Motors. That's a huge one.
Definitely.
Right? Paris Climate Agreement is in there as well. And then just a couple more on Obama. Improved EPA regulations. He had a stimulus package. I don't remember the specifics of that.
Wildly inadequate. You could put that in the bad category potentially too.
Or mixed at best.
It's a mixed bag, yeah.
And then he allowed UN condemnation of Israel and pushed a 2-year free college bill, which didn't get implemented, but at least he, attempted.
Yes.
So anyway, that's the good that Obama did. Now, you want me to start with the bad? I guess I'll start with the bad of Biden, get that out of the way.
Okay.
Because there's a lot there, but we can breeze through this here. I mean, number one, he's starving Afghanistan to death right now.
Terrible.
Just not giving them their own money back, which is horrific. He's continuing to help Saudi Arabia with their genocide in Yemen. And he lied about this one. This one was stunningly grotesque because he said, we're going to stop helping Saudi Arabia do their bombing campaigns. Then they kept giving them weapons, and the media was like, what are you doing? He comes back and says, no, we're only giving them defensive weapons. I mean, it's so gross because he's continuing the exact same policy, but pretending he's more official with it, right? He's filling in the gaps in Trump's border wall. He kept in place a lot of Trump's harshest border policies. Just recently, some of them changed, but I think that's more because the courts mandated that they changed, not because Biden had a change of heart. Correct?
I have to check the details.
Because there's Remain in Mexico is one of them, and there's one other, Title 42, which is the pandemic era policy.
I think it's actually, if memory serves correctly, it's actually the opposite. They wanted to undo the Trump policy. The court basically said they couldn't, and now there's some change that allowed them to undo it.
Okay, so that would be the reverse of what I'm saying here. Okay, anyway, we'll leave that one out there, and people can look it up for themselves.
Fact check us and tell us what the facts are there.
He picked an anti-Social Security extremist to oversee the program, as reported by David Sirota. That's bad. I would argue the fact that we're now sending Ukraine more money and weapons for the 16th time, it's gone overboard now.
Yeah.
Clearly, nobody's really trying to even sit down and find some sort of negotiated settlement. And I'd argue that's both on the American side and on the Russian side. I don't think either one of them are interested in peace.
Sure. Yeah.
He hiked Medicare prices, sent U.S. troops to Somalia, bombed Syria. In the wake of the Afghanistan withdrawal, he approved a drone strike that massacred a family.
Yeah.
We learned about that on the way out of Afghanistan.
Yeah.
So that's definitely, those are the negatives. Now let's get to the positives on Biden, and you tell me what you think is stronger, the case for Obama or the case for Biden. So right off the bat, he just canceled the $10,000 in student loan debt, $20,000 for Pell Grant recipients. But an even maybe more important provision is the capping it at 5% of your monthly income.
Yeah.
So because people are paying 10% now.
Which, in fairness, that 10% was put in place by Obama.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, so that he does get some credit there.
That's a clear improvement on Obama.
It's a clear improvement, but Obama was the one who started that program out of nothing.
But he did.
Biden's making it better.
A lot better.
Yeah.
That's a lot better.
Half.
Right.
Yeah.
That's a lot better. Okay. The $1,400 stimulus checks, I'm inclined to give him mixed reviews on that because they were campaigning on $2,000.
Yeah, but it's still...
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, there were no Obama checks.
I'm giving you credit, but this isn't in the super based category because he said 2,000, right?
Okay.
But still, credit, right?
Yes.
This is actually my favorite one, and nobody knows about it. So remember how the Supreme Court did a horrific decision recently saying the Environmental Protection Agency is no longer allowed to protect the environment.
Yeah.
You're no longer allowed to regulate greenhouse gases. Right. That's what they said. So in the Inflation Reduction Act, which just passed, Democrats slipped in a provision which nobody noticed, which allows the EPA to re-regulate the greenhouse gas emissions.
Yes.
Because what they did is they defined CO2 as a pollutant, which then gives the EPA the ability to regulate it.
Right.
I saw that and I was over the fucking moon. I was like, this is the most base thing Democrats have ever done.
Yeah, and it is amazing because Republicans just didn't even notice.
They didn't notice.
And the Supreme Court was literally in their decision, well, you just got to legislate. I mean, there's no excuse for not just directly legislating. Democrats are like, bet, let's do it.
And I thought wrongly, there's literally no way that they're going to legislate to get this through. And we're fucked.
That's what the Supreme Court thought too. They just assumed it's gridlock. They'll never be able to get that through.
Now they passed it.
Yeah.
And they slipped it in. That was
That shocked the hell out of me that they were clever enough.
G-ass shit.
And
the most base shit any Democrat has ever done ever. That's on some FDR level type shit. I'm not even joking.
Yeah.
That's on some okay, you want to fuck with me? I got you, bitch.
Yeah.
That's what's up. Okay. So there was also an executive order that Biden signed for 200,000 construction workers to increase their pay, which mandates what's called project labor agreements for deals that are over $35 million. So it's a very pro-union, pro-construction worker kind of thing here that's going to increase pay. That's a good thing. One of my favorite things Biden did, he signed an executive order, $15 minimum wage for federal workers and contractors, which applies to hundreds of thousands of people. Mm-hmm. Which is phenomenal. Now, he wasn't able to get the full $15 minimum wage through, but when I saw that he signed that executive order, my interpretation of how Biden was acting changed a little bit, because originally I thought he's not even in favor of $15 minimum wage. He's just posturing. right? But now I believe he is in favor of it because he signed an executive order to put it in place for federal contractors and workers, but he genuinely feel like he ran into a brick wall against Manchin and Sinema. And, I would argue there's ways around that, but he couldn't find them, is the point. But I'll still give him credit for the executive order because hundreds of thousands of people got a big raise as a result of that.
Okay.
So I'll give him that.
Okay.
The gun reform that they just did, it's as weak as weak can be. But honestly, I was resigned to never getting anything ever on gun reform ever again.
Yeah.
And so the fact that there was anything that got through, and we were talking about this before the show, one of the things it does is closes the boyfriend loophole, which is like, so if you're in a marriage and somebody's a domestic abuser, they could take their guns. But if you're just in a normal relationship and your boyfriend's a domestic abuser, they can't take his guns.
Right.
But this closed that and said, no, your guns can get confiscated if you're a domestic abuser, full stop, which is good. There's a waiting period as well now for 18-year-olds to buy guns.
Yep.
Except super weak, granted, but still something. Right?
Yes.
Ketanji Brown Jackson got her on the court. He killed Zawahiri. Again, legal issues with that, but I think normies would say credit where credit is due. You just murked an Al-Qaeda leader. There was a George Floyd executive order, which created a registry for abusive cops. So you could sort of track the abusive cops more. There's some other pieces to that as well. Lena Khan is cracking down on monopolies. You have an NLRB that's actually doing decent work now.
That's, to me, one of the most important
things. That's literally the reason you cited for voting for Biden.
Yeah, right. That was, there was actually just now, the NLRB ruled that Starbucks, number one, they illegally fired workers, but number two, you know how Howard Schultz tried to come in and say, like, we're going to give all these raises and benefits to everyone except the union workers. They just ruled that's illegal and are demanding that they pay back pay and reinstate these workers and whatever.
You would not get that under any Republican.
Yeah.
Even the one who pretends the most like Josh Hawley, he ain't doing that shit.
And the Obama NLRB, just to make the Biden-Obama comparison, and I have to admit at that point in my political development, I was not following these decisions as closely. They were generally pro-worker as well, but they were not as aggressive in the Biden NLRB is actually affirmatively challenging some of the long-held kind of like assumptions of how labor organizing happens. So they've been a much more activist NLRB in terms of, how they're actually interested in governing and advancing the ball for workers, not just maintaining a sliding status quo. So yes, I give him lots of credit there.
Sure. Then we get the PACT Act, which is what Jon Stewart was crusading for, and he gets a lot of credit for this too, but it's the bill that makes it so that toxic burn pit victims can now get health care.
Yeah.
That's, our veterans, that's something. And by the way, the Republicans voted against that the first time, and they weren't going to vote for it until Jon Stewart did a fucking national tour shaming them out loud to their faces.
Yep.
Okay, so he gets credit for that. The CHIPS Act. The CHIPS Act has some issues. Bernie had some questions about it. Hey, how much of this is corporate welfare, et cetera. But the whole idea behind the CHIPS Act is let's bring back microchip manufacturing to the U.S. I don't give a fuck if it was a Republican who did that or a Democrat who did it. I support that idea. Yes. So I give him credit for that as well. Then you have the Inflation Reduction Act. Now, look, originally we were talking about Build Back Better. A strike against Biden is that I don't think he was an effective fighter for Build Back Better.
Oh, great.
And so that's a huge strike against him. But after that fell apart, I was kind of resigned to we're literally not going to get anything.
Yes. Same.
And so, but then the fact we have the IRA and that 15% corporate tax rate is huge. There are so many billion-dollar corporations that pay nothing in taxes or get a net subsidy, so it's a negative tax rate. That's now gone. That's done. 15% corporate minimum tax rate. That's huge. Tax credits for electric vehicles is in that. $64 billion for Obamacare to give more people health care. So I gotta give credit. He invoked the Defense Production Act for the baby formula shortage. This is one people don't give him nearly enough credit for. He either eliminated or nearly eliminated the drone war. Because what's his name? I'm blanking on the guy's name who's been covering this. He's been covering it in detail, and he has all the numbers, and you would know it if I showed you.
Scahill?
No, it's not Scahill. Scahill did a great documentary on drones, but this is not that. Anyway, there's detailed reporting on this. There's basically it's been at a dead standstill. The drone strikes have dropped down massively. Now, the only asterisk I'll give you by that conversation is I seem to remember Trump on the way out changed the reporting rules on drone strikes. Mm-hmm. So it could be that he's still doing them, but it's just not reported now because Trump allowed a veil of secrecy around it that we didn't have previously. But honestly, my guess is this. They're still doing drone strikes, but it really has dropped off massively.
Yeah.
Because we hear there are articles whenever there are drone strikes, and we just the other day he bombed Syria, and we heard about it. Bombing Syria is terrible. Shouldn't have done that. But that was the first time in a very long time we heard about any sort of drone strikes. So he did massively reduce drone strikes. And then of course He got all the troops out of Afghanistan, all the boots on the ground out of Afghanistan. Now, again, the criticism of him is that he's starving the country now and keeping their own money from them. But the fact that he actually took the boots on the ground out of Afghanistan, you have to give him credit for that part of it. And unfortunately, a lot of people who define themselves as anti-war were nowhere to be found to defend him when Biden did that, and everybody and their mother was shitting on him in mainstream media. No Democratic politicians were coming to his defense. The Republicans were going on the offense against him. The media was relentless against him, and he was the only one standing his ground saying, fuck you, I'm right.
It was really the first sort of dark Brandon moment of the administration.
So, look, after going through all that, I'm going to ask you, what do you think? Do you think Biden has edged out Obama now?
I do. I mean, I think it's important, again, to say, of course, neither one of us thinks that any of this is remotely adequate. I think, what do you call Biden? You say bare minimum Biden. I think that's correct. But I'll tell you the reason why I think overall it's more of an ideological argument than a just, adding up the wins on the Obama side and the wins on the Biden side. Number one, you have to keep in mind the context of Obama had a supermajority. Think of what he could have done. So there's a massive opportunity cost there, which I think you can make the case pretty clearly that if Biden had a supermajority, we would have gotten pretty close to the whole Build Back Better initial agenda.
Okay. Can I say something?
Yeah.
You just convinced me. Seriously, I was thinking it's 50-50. They're either equal or maybe Biden's slightly better. With that argument, there's no doubt.
Yeah, I mean,
there's no doubt he's better.
Listen, Democrats are wonderful at making up excuses for their own flailing impotence and desire to avoid governance. There's no doubt about it. All the bullshit with the parliamentarian and his unwillingness to fight for anything or be tough on Manchin or any of that. But if he had had the supermajority that Obama had, I have zero doubt that he would have done way, way more than Obama. I mean, Obama, half of the things that you said for him, his big crowning achievements, they have a million asterisks next to them. I mean, the Affordable Care Act is supposed to be the crowning achievement.
Well, yeah, to me, that is it. That's why I said that one's mixed.
Yeah.
To me, the big ones were the Iran deal and the Cuba normalization. Well, those were two of his best.
And I do think that, Biden could really seal the deal here by getting back into the Iran nuclear deal.
So, okay, yes, but it's a little mixed because if he does, there's chatter that some provisions are going to get even tougher, which I think is totally unfair because we violated the deal. We pulled out of the deal.
Yeah, absolutely.
Make more demands of Iran.
Also, he dicked around why are we waiting this long?
He could have done it day one.
He could have done it right away.
Which, again, is another strike against Biden is that he could eliminate all the student loan debt. He could legalize marijuana today, and he's not doing it.
Yeah, but of course,
Obama
could have done that too.
He did less than Biden did.
Yeah.
Well, actually, on the marijuana front, Obama did more. Because he freed more nonviolent offenders towards the end of his time in office.
I think probably overall on criminal, I think ideologically, Obama is better on criminal justice and drug reform. And not that he did a lot, but Biden is still 90s
drug
lock
warrior.
Him up, drug warrior.
But then on economics, is your argument that Biden's a little to the left of Obama?
And here's where I was going to make this sort of ideological argument. Obama's administration, which is becoming very clear from some of the voices that are speaking out against student loan debt now, including some of his top economic advisors, his administration was full-scale 110% neoliberalism. Straight up, let me just take the Clinton playbook, let me run it in the 2000s, no deviation from that whatsoever. Biden is by and large neoliberal, and you see that even in the student loan debt relief, which is we got to means test it, and it's only 125,000, and we're only going to do 10,000, and it's got to be complex and a program and all this stuff. That's sort of the neoliberal brain, right? Rather than just doing a blanket, universal, simple, straightforward policy to deal with the problem. But the very fact that you're doing any just direct debt cancellation is an incredible 180 from neoliberalism. I mean, this is why Larry Summers and Jason Furman and all these other people are freaking out about it.
They're ripping Biden right now.
I know.
They're on Twitter
going after
this is
him
a terrible idea.
Crazy. And these were top Obama guys. So the fact that he has, on student loan, debt cancellation is a very, very different type of thing. And the fact that you are even dabbling in that and setting an intellectual precedent for it is really remarkable. Direct checks, another thing that Obama would never have dreamed of doing. Now, part of this is I think that the ideological center of gravity in the country has shifted in terms of like the neoliberal orders breaking down. So you could have a bigger philosophical discussion about how much of this is like these men individually and how much of it is they're just sort of responding to shifting political incentives and a shifting political architecture. But put that to the side for a moment. You see it not just with the student loan debt relief, you also see it with the CHIPS Act. This is like direct industrial policy that was considered, you know, off the table until very recently. You were like a knuckle dragger if you wanted the government to intervene in this kind of a direct way. You have, I think you maybe covered this on your show, but you have huge amounts of jobs coming back from overseas.
True.
Part of that is Biden policy. Part of it is the fact that their pandemic exposed how having these incredibly fragile supply chains was...
It's a national security issue now. That's why they're bringing them back. It's now a national security issue.
Right. So, but that is also a break from neoliberalism. And you also have, you mentioned the Defense Production Act, which was invoked for the baby formula crisis. This, again, is like the government directing industrial policy and getting more directly involved in shaping the economy with an affirmative goal in mind, rather than just like, yeah, we're going to kick it to the market and that's that.
So let me tell you why I don't buy the argument that like, hey, maybe it's just a place and time thing. And if you reverse Biden with Obama, then, you know, Biden would have acted like Obama and Obama would act like Biden now. Here's why I don't buy that. The 2008 subprime mortgage crisis and Great Recession is very analogous to everything that was going on in our economy with the pandemic and what Biden inherited. And so since it's so analogous, Obama had the opportunity to go full FDR, especially with a supermajority, and to really break the streak of neoliberalism, and he actively chose not to do it. Biden is in a position where he's still largely upholding the neoliberal order, but there are definitely more clear breaks with it than there were under Obama. So I think that's the breakdown. Your point about the supermajority definitely changed my mind, where I was 50-50 or maybe slightly giving the edge to Biden. I'm definitely giving the edge to Biden now. I think Biden is a better president than Obama was. And honestly, after this conversation, I don't even think it's that arguable. And, you know, and people are going to have a hard time arguing me out of it because I just, look, how many fucking policies did we just go through? Of the shit that they did, right? Like, we were very thorough with this shit.
And again, like, no one's saying that it's enough or that it's, you know,
look, like, we don't even need we already did 84 caveats. But we don't need it. If people are going to smear us, they're going to smear us. Look, let me be the one to say it. If people watch this and take that away, they are unnuanced fucking idiots looking to get offended, and that's the bottom line.
That's the bottom line. I'm just trying to be clear.
I know, but we were already clear 47 times, and I don't care about smear artists anymore. Oh, Kyle carrying water for Biden. He said Dark Brandon. Oh. I don't give a fuck. Look how nuanced we're being here. Look how all the detail that I'm laying out for you. None of these people can give 5% the detail I just laid out if they want to smear us over this shit. So yeah, you got your caveats. You got all your nuance. All that nuance is important, but, you know, I'm not going to repeat it every 17 seconds so as to get a horde of angry morons off of my ass. Hey, y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop, and watch that video on screen right now. You know you want to.